Hello, and welcome to, I guess, what you would call a grand finale of the Gunpla series that we've done. In this video, we're going to kind of condense everything that has been done so far, and also we'll take a look at the final, the final output that we got from this whole process. So I will be talking over the music and over these views that you see on your screen, just to kind of explain both the workflow and the thought process behind the different decisions. So I started with this photogrammetry tool where I actually built up this Gunpla model and took a bunch of pictures of it and basically created a 3D model from those pictures. And then I imported that 3D model into Rhino and started 3D modeling out different add-ons and different parts that I would like to see on the model. Right. So this is the first test that I've done, the 3D printed out test that I've done, just to see if it fits on the model and if the tolerances are correct. And of course they were not correct, right? So I had to kind of redo a lot of things and so on. But this is me just fitting those pieces onto the model. So here you can see me 3D modeling out adjustments and changing the geometry a bit, also adding details and so on. I was 3D printing out these forms with an FDM 3D printer, not a resin-based 3D printer, so the resolution suffered quite a bit, and it's definitely not my suggestion to use a FDM 3D printer for these kind of forms. So that was problematic, to say the least. And of course, any kind of model, in my opinion, requires a base, somewhere to put it, right? And I had this tutorial that I've been doing for a grasshopper tutorial, both for my students and also for YouTube. You can check it out. It's on my YouTube page. Where I had this kind of Japanese garden aesthetic of stone stacking, and I really wanted to test it out if this could work with a Gunpla model, right, with a robot. So this is just me messing around and doing some quite basic 3D modeling and also setting it up for 3D printing. And actually, I really enjoy how it turned out. I think it went really great. Once everything was modeled out, and it was of course time for the final painting, final assembly, and so on. So these were all the pieces here, one by one, sanding them down to make them grip when you glue them together. I just used this regular hardware store glue, nothing fancy. They tend to hold the elements quite well as well. Look at me being all cautious with the first element. Later on, I sped it up quite substantially. There we go, and that's all elements glued. And once everything was glued, I used this kind of plastic putty to fill in the gaps, because FDM printers, they're not that precise. Vacuuming, keeping everything clear, clean, sorry, is very important. So FDM printers are not that precise. So if you're going to do this kind of project by yourself, be prepared for a lot of sanding. I think I've spent around, I would say 12 hours of just sanding. But, and even then, after those 12 hours, you can still see the layer lines. It's still not perfectly smooth. And, I've learned a lot of different things that I would change for the next process, or the next project rather. But yeah, we'll see if those notes that I took will work in the next project. This is here I'm just assembling everything and checking if everything has a snug fit, if everything will be a-okay, and if I can start painting. It's always such a fun process, or such a fun thing to do. Once you have something 3D modeled out and you 3D print it, you actually see, how it fits together, and if everything works. And if everything works, then it's the best feeling ever. And here I'm just looking for collisions. If I've thought about everything, and it appears I kind of have, and there will be no collisions. So once that was done, it was time for some painting. And I used Tamiya, I don't know how to pronounce it, paints, spray paints, because I don't have an airbrush booth, or an airbrush for that matter. So I just used spray paints. I think they worked good enough. It's not perfect, but it was good enough. To get a few colors in, I used some masking tape and just masked out all the colors that I want to keep, and spray painted a second layer on top of my elements. So here is me removing the masking tape, and I guess it's hard to see here on the screen, but I used two different colors, and I don't remember what colors those are. Wait, let me check. Metallic red and maroon. So these were two main colors for the Grimgarda robot itself, and even though they're not that different from each other. Well, you can kind of see the difference here. One is much more shiny. The metallic red is much more shiny, so it does give a nice contrast from one to the other. And then it was time to mark in the details. I have bought a few water decals to add, but I didn't really like how they looked, so I just decided to add in details with a brush, old school way. And then there was the time for the landscape, or the base. So for this one, I almost didn't use any spray paints. I just brushed everything. Brushed? Not airbrushed, but just brushed everything from scratch. And it seems to have worked out. I'm pretty happy with the final result. So this is just me adding a base coat and then adding like grime and dirt that's underneath the rocks, adding even more like black paint in between the rocks to make them pop more, and then just introducing a few variations here and there. Once it was dried, I also added a top layer of dry brushed white paint to just make the rocks pop a bit more. So this is me dry brushing on top and just writing something on the back. And there is the final result with the model, with the robot, with the stones and everything. And I'm pretty happy with the result, even though it's not perfectly precise and it's not ideal, but it is, for a first try, I'm really happy. So I hope you've enjoyed watching this video, or video series rather, as I have making them, and I will see you in the next ones. Later!